Hi everybody, you're very welcome today to our Enterprise Ireland UK webinar with Go Exporting. Thanks Mike Wilson from Go Exporting for being with us today, and thank you to all the attendees for joining us. Today we're going to be exploring our latest report, which is UK Local Authorities Investment Areas and the Impact of COVID-19. So who are we? Just to introduce ourselves, because we do have a number of companies that are joining us today, some of whom are not familiar with Enterprise Ireland. So before we start, we just wanted to introduce ourselves. And Enterprise Ireland are the Irish Development Agency for Trade and Innovation, and we support over 5,000 Irish companies. My name is Laura Brocklebank, and I'm the Senior Market Advisor heading up our Manchester office, and I'm leading on this sector, UK Local Authorities. Enterprise Ireland have a number of sector specialists around the UK, out of two of our offices, London and Manchester. And we support businesses to build long-term partnerships and help companies in the UK to source a solution to their business needs. And for this sector in particular, we support Irish businesses who are bringing innovation and value to councils. So just to give you a bit of an insight into the work we've been doing in this sector so far this year. In February, we had our UK Local Authority Forum, which was a knowledge sharing and peer learning event in February, where we invited a number of clients to East Point. And we had some keynote speakers, Nick Gilby from CITES and Teresa Grant, Chief Executive Northamptonshire Council. We were delighted to have them involved in our kickoff forum. We then had a wonderful conversation with Nick Gilby, who is CEO of CITES Communications, and that's available on our Evolve UK podcast. And Nick is a former councillor, so he has first-hand experience of working within council, so give that a listen. And we also hosted a webinar with our Enterprise Ireland client, Orbital, and CEO Tony Corrigan shared his expertise on how to support businesses who are trying to win contracts through tenders. And this webinar, along with a number of others, are available on our globalambition.ie website. So please go on there to listen into the recordings. So I'd just like to welcome Mike Wilson from Go Exporting. We've been working together now for the last year, and Mike has compiled two reports for us for this sector in particular. The first report was our UK Local Authority Structure and Procurement Method report, and that's available still, so please do let me know if you want access to it. It's also available through our Market Research Centre. And today, Mike is going to present the findings from our latest report, which is investment areas and the impact of COVID-19. And really, particularly within the pandemic and with the challenge of Brexit, it's really great to be able to bring some insights into what local authorities are prioritising and where they're spending money. So Mike's just going to really give a bit of an overview today, but the report goes into a lot more depth and also talks about specific local authorities as well. So the presentation is going to focus on the investment areas and the opportunities and overview of the structure, because that is ever changing at the moment within the UK. The full report will be sent to you following the webinar as well. And just to say, there is a more detailed spreadsheet which comes along with the report, and that does give some links and additional detail on planned investment areas for councils. So Mike, thanks a million, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'd just like to spend a couple of minutes just to introduce myself and my company, Go Exporting. So as the name suggests, we specialise in export, helping companies to launch into international markets. I established the company a couple of years ago, and we've got a global network of associates that we can call upon to help get into any countries. It's hard to believe now, but I've got 30 years experience in export and international trade, worn out a lot of suitcases, gained a lot of air miles. And it's fair to say that helping companies to get into export markets is my passion and the passion of the company, and that's why we set the company up. So we specialize in helping companies with their export readiness, getting ready to prepare to sell into international markets, assessing opportunities, developing strategy, and actually opening markets for customers. We worked with startups, SMEs, right through to multinational corporations and international trade bodies. So you could say that we're the experts in the field. We've created this 7 Steps to Export Success ebook and program. The ebook can be downloaded from our website, and that's the basis of some of the ways that we work with our clients. Okay. So first, we're just going to do a little poll. Do you export to the UK? Just to give us some idea of where you're at the moment.
Great, thanks, Mike. I'm going to launch the poll now. So if you could all fill in your answers, and we'll give you a few minutes to do that. So this will be great to understand a bit more about the audience today and to understand, are you exporting to the UK currently? Is this a new export market for you? So I'll just give you a couple more seconds. Okay. I'm going to close the poll and I'll just share some of the results. So 41% say yes, they regularly do. 36% say infrequently, but they'd like to increase. And 23% say never, but I want to start. So we're delighted for those of you who are experienced in selling regularly to the UK local authorities council, authorities and councils. It's going to be a lot of detail today. And for those of you who are starting off your exporting journey, and we hope this is going to give you some really great insights into the sector. Okay, over to you, Mike.
Okay, thank you. It's great to see that so many people are looking to start an export journey or increase their exports. I think despite the situation, it's a good time to be looking at that. So first of all, we're going to look a little bit at the UK local authority structure and how it's changing. So there are basically 2 local authority structures operating in England. When you first look at the overall sector, it can be very confusing because there's lots of different names for councils. There's district councils, county councils, London boroughs, metropolitan councils, and so on. But when you actually break it down, there are 2 systems operating. There are unitary authorities where one authority is in control for everything, responsible for everything in their area. And there are currently 126 of those, including 33 boroughs in London and 36 metropolitan districts. In other areas, we have a 2-tier system where you have a county council that's responsible for certain services across the whole of the county, and then district councils, which are responsible for more localized services. And so there is a split between the 2. Now, there's definitely a trend towards more unitary authorities. Currently, there are 339 local authorities in the UK, but when we did our report last year, there were actually 353. So we've seen a drop of 13 district councils this year and a drop of 2 county councils, with 1 increase in unitary authorities. So there is a definite trend towards unitary authorities. Indeed, the government is about to launch or publish a white paper with their thoughts on local authority reorganization. And they are actually encouraging the move towards unitary authorities and in fact towards devolution, where they want to have combined authorities led by a mayor, like we have in Manchester with Andy Burnham, for example. And they're actually trying to tie the 2 together, or that's the suspicion, is they're going to try to tie the 2 together. So if you want to become a unitary authority, then you need to be looking at devolution as part of that as well, as a way of regionalizing the governance of the country. But they're also likely to bring in guidelines as to the optimum and the minimum sizes for unitary authorities. And we believe that the minimum will be 350,000 population, and the optimum they're going to say is around 650,000. So this could be quite politically contentious because there are Labour and Conservative and Liberal Democrat held councils, Either some of those will disappear, and the borders will change and so on. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few years. The most recent unitary authorities of Buckinghamshire, Laura's already mentioned about Northamptonshire. You had one of their leaders doing a seminar. West Northamptonshire and North Northamptonshire have been put as unitary authorities recently following the financial difficulties that happened in Northampton County Council. And it's suggested that there'll be unitaries in other areas like Leicestershire, Cumbria, East Lancashire, and so on. In addition to that, what you can see there, we have 10 combined authorities where county councils work together, or district councils work together to share facilities. And the latest of those is North of Tyne Combined Authority. So next slide, please. So here we're just looking at the areas of responsibility. Of course, unitary authorities, as we said, they cover all services, so education, highways, transport, right through. Whereas county councils, as you can see, cover all of the ones on there apart from housing, which is governed by the district councils in this case. The Metropolitan and London boroughs are unitary authorities, but we've shown them separately because of the influence of the Greater London Authority or Assembly, which also has some influence over strategic planning and over transport in the London area. Next slide, please. So away from everything we've looked at so far is England. For Wales, we already have totally unitary authorities. There are 22 authorities there, each one being responsible for all of their services in their local area. There has been talk in the past about reducing that, but so far that's not been successful. In Scotland, there are 32 unitary authorities, and again, responsible for all the services. And in Northern Ireland, there are 11 district councils. They have less responsibility than equivalent councils in England, Wales, or Scotland, because things like education, roads, housing are covered by the Northern Ireland Executive. Okay. So as we've seen already, the structure of councils is changing. But a lot of that is being driven by the financial crisis. We'll see later on how the funding for local authorities has changed and drastically reduced from central government anyway over recent years. So that has driven a lot of change. Change has led to combined and merged authorities, the idea being that you can save money, increase efficiency by combining and having a critical mass, basically. There are also councils which share services with neighbours, and even sometimes with not neighbours, with councils that are some distance away, but they share their services. Councils have also looked at outsourcing their services, and at the same time, other councils are looking at insourcing. It may be strange, but some have different views. Some want to bring everything back in-house where they've been outsourced, and others think it'll be more efficient to outsource all of their services or parts of their services elsewhere. But the big thing is that the financial constraints have brought about new thinking, a new approach, and really all bets are off and everything is changing. To give an example of the move, so Leicester, there's a detailed proposals to create one single unitary authority covering the whole of Leicestershire, and that will abolish 7 district councils. Again, the objective is to save money, to reduce duplication, and to protect services. They expect that there could well be £30 million worth of services per year there, and that would create a big opportunity for new suppliers to enter the market, because again, traditional suppliers, traditional relationships will change, and everything will be up for new thinking, basically. Next slide, please. So now we're going to have a look at UK local authority funding. There are basically 4 principal sources of funding for authorities. Firstly is council tax. That's the tax which is levied on each household in a local area. So the local authority levies that, collects that, and is able to keep that and use it for its own services locally. So that's a good source, a big source of income for them, but it is restricted in that they can only put a 2% maximum annual increase without having a local vote to make sure that local population agree with the increase, which of course very rarely do they agree. So the next thing is increasingly local councils are able to keep business rates. Originally, it used to be that business rates went largely to central government, who then redistributed it to different local authorities in what they felt was a proportionate way. But these days, it's becoming an increasing amount is being retained by the local authorities. Currently, it's 50%, and the intention was for that to rise to 75% by 2022 or from 2022. That is to offset number 3, which is central government grants, especially the revenue support grant, which is the largest, one of the largest grant and has been the largest source of income for UK local authorities. But that's been cut drastically since 2010. And in fact, it's up to 60% reduction in that, with the idea being that the business rates will have taken up some of that slack. But there is definitely, as we'll see, a funding gap. And particularly now, the councils are relying on business rates, and with COVID-19, business rates have been decimated, if non-existent in some areas, although the government is trying to plug that gap. Councils do also get other ring-fence grants, such as public health and the schools grants. So they have a number of grants which make up their income. By ring-fenced, I mean that the government gives them the money, but it has to be spent in the area that they say. And then finally, there's local fees and charges, so things like car parking and local licenses and so on. The councils can charge for those and can keep the fees for those, although there is a principle that they should only charge what it costs them to provide the service, so there's not necessarily a profit element in there. Okay, next slide, please. So this is showing the change in local authority funding since 2016-17. So as you can see in 2016-17, 39% of the overall income that a council received was from the revenue support grant from the central government. That's reduced to 21% to 8% and to 4% in 2019-20. So as you can see, it's a huge drop in the hole in the funding for local authorities. But on the other side, as I said, the revenue, the business rates, they're retaining more of that, with the idea that that makes up some, if not all, of the difference. Although in practice, it's not actually making the difference. This year, there was already planned to be a slight increase in the revenue support grant because they'd seen some of this difficulties that councils were getting into. So that was going to increase to 10% anyway. But generally, the trend is for that to reduce and for retention of business rates to increase, so that eventually will become negligible. Next slide. So this shows the change in funding year on year since 2011-12, and as you can see, every single year it's been a negative effect. So it's reckoned that councils have lost 60% of their income funding over that period of time. It was due to increase a little bit in 2021 in real terms, mainly again because of that increase in the revenue support grant back to around 10%. Next one, please. But that doesn't mean to say there isn't quite a lot of money around and quite a lot of money being spent by councils. You can see here the budgets for funding for the last financial year: £99.2 billion in England, 8.3 in Wales, 11 in Scotland, and just under 1 billion in Northern Ireland. So there are huge amounts of money being spent by local authorities across the UK. Some areas have been increasing or budgeted to increase. For example, child social care, adult social care. These are growing areas with aging population. For adult social care, for example, is a critical area which is still very much underfunded. Highways is again an area which a lot of investment's been put into, and increase in budgets. That was around a 14% increase there that was budgeted for last year. And the police service, again, they've seen increases in their budget. So what about the funding gap? Even before COVID-19, it was estimated that there would be an £8 billion funding gap by 2025. Government funding has actually reduced by almost 60% since 2010. And 27% of councils fear that they won't have enough funds to fulfil their statutory duties by 2022. So that's a huge drop in their income, even before COVID-19. And in addition to that, with Brexit, they're going to lose around 8.4 billion in EU funding potentially. The government has said that it will replace that, but so far it's not given any details, and it could well be that not all of it will get replaced. After COVID-19, oh, sorry, could we just go back? After COVID-19, we're obviously seeing a decimation really of business rates and local fees for the income for councils. So again, that's a double whammy for them. And there've been also huge COVID-19 related costs such as social care, PPE, housing the homeless, and so on. And some have estimated that the funding shortfall this year will be over 10 billion this year alone, which hopefully the government is going to fulfill a lot of that. They've already provided 27 billion of funding for COVID-19 related relief, but the authorities claim that they do need an additional 1 billion even for the first 3 months of the lockdown period. So obviously that's probably increasing as we go along, particularly as it seems like tonight Boris Johnson's going to be talking to us all and introducing some new lockdown restrictions, it seems. Okay. So what has all that meant? It's meant that the councils had to be very innovative in their budgeting. And now we're going to look a little bit more deeply in what they've done. So 100% of councils, every council in the country has shared services or management outside of its own authority or its local area. That's incredible, really, when you think about it. They're sharing services. They're not providing their own services because they feel it's going to be more efficient to do it, to combine that with a local, an adjoining authority, for example. And that's part of the reason the government thinks that unitary authorities joining together of councils will be a more efficient way of doing things. 89% of councils have transformed one or more service using digital or data solutions. That's a key area that we'll see later on as one of the priorities for a lot of local authorities. And 70% of councils are reported to actually improve their services despite the funding gap. So that's quite amazing that they've actually managed. They've been innovative. They've shared services, and they've actually, according to the local government association, they've actually managed to improve the services that they offer. There's also been a lot of projects involving councils generating additional income through digital funded programs, for example. 65% of those projects have generated income there of £6.6 million or savings. And 61% of councils have outsourced or insourced some of their services or parts of their services. So councils are really thinking hard how they're going to deliver the services. Okay. So some examples of innovative local authorities. Suffolk County Council has outsourced actually all of their services. That's the only one they've come across, but they've outsourced absolutely everything. Norwich City Council actually generates 7.6 million from commercial investments, which pay for 13% of its local services. I think that's a theme that we're going to see, that councils are having to become more commercial. They're not just public servants delivering services, they're having to be commercial organizations to generate income to fill the gap in their funding. For example, Shropshire Council is investing 300 million in projects to generate 15 million of net annual revenue income. So they're looking at housing and so on as ways of generating income. Okay. So what are the opportunities and the priorities that we see, and how can these changes benefit you as businesses looking to sell into the sector? One thing is that everything is under review. There's nothing which is sacrosanct. Everything may change, and any new approach that you're able to offer will be considered. change is at the forefront of the local authorities' minds. It's no longer resisted. It used to be that local authorities were considered to be old-fashioned and it was hard to get any change and nothing ever really altered at all. But now it's completely the opposite. Traditional supplier preferences no longer apply. And so there are plenty of opportunities for suppliers who can offer ways of generating income, innovative approaches, efficiencies, and cost savings. But one note of caution here is make sure that you're ready for Brexit. I know Enterprise Ireland are doing a lot of work on this with Irish companies, but it's important that you ensure you can operate and offer your services without any delay or interruption or increased red tape or increased difficulty for councils post-Brexit. Local authorities are not known for their patience, and if anything seems like it's going to increase their costs or cause them any kind of complications, then they'll pull back from it. So you need to be able to plan. You need to be able to demonstrate that you're prepared for whatever Brexit's going to bring. Okay.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for that. Those insights so far. Very much on point in terms of being prepared for Brexit, and you'll see some additional insights, particularly around engaging the UK customer, which Enterprise Ireland UK will be leading on over the next number of weeks. So keep posted on that. So I'm just going to run another quick poll. Is local authorities your main target focus in the UK in terms of sectors? So I'm just going to launch this poll and I'll let everybody contribute. I'll keep going. Just give you a few more minutes. So yes, it's your main target sector. It's partly one of your key target sectors, or no, you're focusing on other sectors but considering looking at local authorities. Okay, I'm going to close the poll and I'll just share the results. So 19%, it's their main target sector. 70%, it's partly one of the key target sectors, and 11% are focusing on other sectors but considering it. So I think that gives some really good insights. And from your presentation today, Mike, I think it's clear to say that with the changing structures, etc., everything is up for grabs. So there are still definitely opportunities within the public sector in the UK. So let's keep.
Definitely, I think it's definitely a big opportunity for those companies that are, saying that you're looking at it and already in the sector. Definitely something to keep thinking about and to plan for. So let's have a look at specifically which areas local authorities are actually investing in to give you some idea of where the opportunities are. From the research that we've done, we found that the money that local authorities are spending and that they're concentrated on has fallen in broadly into these categories that you see here. So digital transformation is a big area, as is housing. There's a shortage of affordable housing in the UK, and there's a big push towards generating more housing, but also councils are seeing it as a way of generating income. There's regeneration of inner city areas, but not just inner cities, there's also smaller towns and so on where regeneration is becoming important. Transport is definitely a key area. Before COVID, it was ways of getting people out of their cars and onto public transport or onto more active forms of transport, and slightly changing at the moment, but it will come back. So environment is a key area for many local authorities. Many have actually claimed a climate emergency so that they can introduce certain new policies and so on. Energy, using alternative and renewable energies, and economy in business, creating growth in the local area, creating skills, technology to create income for local authorities is an important area. As are smart cities, which is linked obviously to transport and digital in some ways, but those measuring traffic, measuring pollution levels, easing the flow of traffic and improving the lives of citizens. So those are the key areas that we see that from the research that local authorities have been investing in or are planning to invest in. So we look first at digital transformation. Councils are definitely embracing the digital area. It used to be that, you know, it was hard to find councils doing anything digitally. Now they're all trying to do something. They're utilizing technology for their own services, that's for sure, to make them more efficient, to reduce costs. But they're also creating an environment for enhanced digital connectivity for businesses and residents in their areas, so that they can enable advanced digital platforms, for example, using tech to, you know, improve services, speed up response times and improve connectivity, which can lead to economic growth. Why are they doing it? As we just said, it enables local businesses to flourish, it attracts inward investment, it creates economic growth, increases council income from business rates and from provision of services, and it improves their local service provision and helps with regeneration. So one great example of this is Belfast City Council. They've taken a very strategic approach to boosting connectivity, including super fast digital services. And that's reckoned to have increased the local economy by 5%. And it's also created a lot of jobs with an average salary of 14.8% above the average in the area. So there's been also significant inward investment, and it's estimated 80,000 jobs will be created by 2030. And they're now, for example, a leading international hub for cybersecurity, and were recently crowned the best city in the UK for mobile connectivity. So companies are investing in Belfast. Some international, multinational companies like Baker & McKenzie, Fujitsu, Concentrix, they're now based in Belfast. A company called Explio is investing 8 million to create 30 jobs. And it's been a real success story for Belfast, creating that infrastructure that's helped these tech companies to flourish in that area, and therefore it's helped the local economy. Other areas too are looking at this. So, for example, Bolton wants to create a super connected digital city. Greater Manchester and Leeds likewise. And then you have Cheltenham that's creating a £650 million cyber park. And they've just recently been voted the best commercial council. I mentioned earlier that this is the change in approach really with councils. They're having to become commercial organizations, not just public servants. Okay. So the next one is smart cities. So 60% of the global population, it's reckoned, will live in urban areas by 2030. But of course, that creates a lot of issues. And smart cities aim to improve that standard of living for people and the environment in cities by making data-driven decisions, by analyzing traffic flows, by analyzing pollution, and getting stakeholder buy-in to any changes that are required, using technology to its fullest to help things run smoothly, basically. So why are they doing it? Reduce congestion, monitor and reduce pollution, the economic benefits and the connectivity. So this is a big area which is definitely on the increase and will continue to increase, particularly as driverless vehicles become more common, which, you know, it seems like they will do. And smart cities being able to control traffic lights and flow, for example, will be very important for driverless vehicles. So one big example here is Newcastle Council. They were named Smart City of the Year in 2019. It has a very innovative approach to using technology to help transform services with the aim of improving residents' lives. So they've developed more efficient delivery of transport, cleaner air, and more responsive local services to help improve the independence of people in the area. Other areas that are looking at smart city schemes is Smart Cambridge, for example, looking at a way to transform the way people live, the way they work and travel, and improve transport, reduce pollution. And Sheffield has planned a complete technological overhaul of its roads with sensors and monitors throughout, so that they can have a real, they can change traffic flows and so on as and when required. So smart cities is another fantastic area if you're involved in any kind of products that help with smart city development, and it's a key area of investment. And leading on from that is infrastructure. It's one of the key services for local authorities. They maintain 184,000 miles of roads in England, for example, which is 97.6% of the road network. So although we have Highways England that runs the strategic road network, actually a much bigger proportion of roads is run by local authorities. And that has been a problem with their budgets because they have been cut. It used to be they spent around £13,000 per mile. It's now reduced to around £9,000 per mile. But they're still, as we saw, the budget for highways and infrastructure is increasing. It's increased by 14%, so it's recognized that there needs to be investment in this area. For example, we're fixing a pothole every 17 seconds, which is a good investment, but also shows the state of the roads in the first place because of lack of investment previously. So I've just mentioned that the budget's increased, and there's a lot of emphasis on cycle lanes. A lot of the big cities, Manchester, Liverpool, and so on, are investing into cycle lanes and into walking zones as well for to create healthy ways of transporting, basically. Through COVID-19, there's been an economic stimulation package which has been worth 1.7 billion in infrastructure, or will be. Again, that's a way of stimulating the economy to help to create better connectivity, smoother and safer journeys, and of course, environmental and health benefits are all important. One example of infrastructure investment, it's around 70 million in transformational growth in Biggleswade, where they're looking to deliver a new school and highways infrastructure to support 3,000 new homes. So we'll see as we go through this, there's a lot of where we've categorized infrastructure or housing, but a lot of these things are interconnected. Infrastructure is built to support the housing and so on. And that's part of a 600 million government support package related to, they want to develop 50,000 new homes in areas of high demand, in this case around London, where it's very difficult for people to afford housing if you're a key worker or young people, for example. So the cycle lanes is a big area of investment. If we go north of the border, Scotland is investing 1.13 billion for improving transport across Glasgow and the Clyde Valley. West Sussex, for example, is investing 23 million in road building. And then we've got a whole host of infrastructure investment around the HS2 rail network, which is finally started now and will create a lot of jobs and a lot of investment. On top of all of this, for local authorities, we have the Highways England investment in the strategic road network. So they've just launched what they call RIS2, Road Investment Strategy 2, where they're investing £27.4 billion over the next 5 years into the strategic road network to improve, to build new bypasses and so on. So that's a huge investment. So any company that's involved in the infrastructure, the road sector, there are huge opportunities in the UK over the next few years. Next, we have transport. So the aim with transport has always been to reduce private vehicle journeys, which to help reduce congestion, to reduce pollution and so on. So the increase in public transport, increase also in healthy travel. So we saw cycle lanes, but also walking areas to improve connectivity. The whole idea being to improve the lives of citizens and create economic benefits and health benefits, of course, and regenerate areas. A good example of this is Birmingham City Council, which has just launched its new transport plan. It was published in 2020, just before COVID-19. So its guiding principles for future investment to serve more people, homes and jobs whilst creating a better environment to live and work in, regardless of age, disability or income. So it's 4 big ideas within this plan to reallocate road space so that bikes and electric vehicles and so on have priority over more polluting vehicles, less cars in the city centre, active travel priority in local area. By that they mean creating walking, cycling routes, and then managing demand for vehicles going into the city centre, for example, through parking charges and parking availability. So transport is a real area of investment. Before COVID, the idea was to drag people out of their cars. There were things like congestion charging, low emission zones. Now it's a little bit different, but it will come back, and that will be, it's still the underlying focus is to create less traffic, less car reliance on the car. So there are big opportunities here for companies involved in street furniture, for example, demarcation materials, transport systems, intelligent transport and parking information signs. As an example, Derby and Nottingham County Councils have got a joint submission at the moment for £100 million investment from the government's Transforming Cities Fund, and that's to improve connectivity with a new electric rapid transit system. So investment like that is happening in a number of areas, and if you're involved in any kind of allied industry, then there's definitely a lot of opportunities. So you could say that transport, infrastructure, and smart cities become a virtual holy trinity of opportunity here. They're interlinked, but there is a lot of opportunity and investment for anyone that's involved in that sector. Okay. So the next big area is housing. We've already mentioned that there's a lack of affordable housing in the UK. Some call it a crisis. It's certainly difficult for people to find good quality, low-cost housing, particularly around the major cities. And the government has got a grant scheme of up to around £895 million to help local authorities to increase their housing investment. It's quite strange, really, when the Conservative government 30 years or so ago, 40 years ago, sold off all the council houses, and now we're investing in them again. And there are also a lot of joint schemes that are going in. So, but on top of that, what we found in the research is that local authorities are investing very heavily, not just the amount that's available in grants, they're actually raising funds to invest in new housing. Again, they're seeing it as a way of improving their economy, they're providing affordable housing, but also to give them a future income. So, for example, Oldham Council is investing £306 million to build 2,000 new homes across the town. They're calling this creating a better place. It's part of a series of regeneration projects within the town, and again, that's coordinated with transport links. So again, as I've said, all of these schemes, these areas of priority are interlinked. But not only that, in housing, you've also got fantastic opportunities. Birmingham is building 4,000 new homes plus commercial space. Edinburgh's got a £2.5 billion plan for 20,000 affordable homes. And just in the last week or so, I've just read that in Wales, they're now tendering for a £5 billion framework to deliver new affordable homes across South and Mid Wales. And they want to build 20,000 new homes in this Parliament and 75,000 over the next 20 years. So of course, that's a huge opportunity for any of you that are involved in the housing sector or the building sector. They're funding that through this government grant scheme, but also by borrowing against the asset that they're going to build and the future income. But they see it as a way of plugging their funding gap and meeting their statutory requirements. Okay. Next key area is regeneration of towns and city centres. That's a key responsibility of local authorities and one that they're taking seriously. It does help to transform transform old areas into commercial and residential areas. Anyone that knows Birmingham will have seen the Gas Street Basin area, Broad Street area, and Salford Quays in Manchester. A lot of investment that's been put into to improve these areas and create commercial space and residential space, which is bringing, again, income into the areas and giving new life to the areas. So it's improving the environment for local residents, it's stimulating the economy, creating jobs, and it's future income for the council. We see that Kirklees Council is spending 68 million on a project for Huddersfield and Dewsbury town centres, but also in smaller towns and villages around the area to improve, to regenerate the area. So Tees Valley is another example. Combined authority there has applied for funding for £71 million to convert the steelworks into a business zone. So there's all of these regeneration projects going on, and if you look out for them, they can be a very good opportunity. Okay. Now another big area of investment, but also income generation for local authorities at the moment is alternative energy. It's all part of environment, but I've put alternative energy as its category on its own because there is such an emphasis on this and such a level of investment at the moment. So it's using increased use of alternative energy and renewable power sources to follow their green agenda and the policies which have been adopted by many local authorities as core priorities for them, even to the point where some have declared climate emergency in their areas and made it a real priority. So they have a lot of them aggressive emission reduction targets and goals to become carbon neutral. So for example, Manchester wants to halve its greenhouse gases over the next 5 years. So there's some very aggressive targets out there. And the use of alternative energy is a key driver for local authorities. And one excellent example, which other authorities are now looking to follow, is West Sussex Council. They operate a large solar farm, which has actually generated 1.2 million in surplus revenue for them, which they've invested in their frontline services, so plugging that funding gap. In the last 12 months alone, it's generated enough power for 3,300 homes and to offset the emissions of 1,500 cars. So it's a real win-win. They're generating income for themselves, but they're having significant improvements on the environment. And as I say, this is an area that other local authorities are looking at. Cambridge Council has declared a climate emergency and is looking to reduce its own emissions in its own assets by 50% by 2030. It's a £110 million project. And they're looking at renewable energy efficiency savings across all of its assets, so schools, offices, transport, waste, and housing. And then you have areas like Hackney, which are putting 15,000 council homes are going to have solar panels. And there's a growing trend for schools, for example, to have solar panels on their roofs to generate the power to run the schools themselves. So it's a big area of investment, and we felt it was worth mentioning that as a separate area of priority and emphasis for local authority investment. Leading on from that, and part of that is the environment. So there's a range of environmental projects and investments going on. Electric vehicle charging is a clear one. Investing in cycle walking routes is another one. So there's this green agenda that we've just mentioned as well, and it's become a core priority for local authorities. They have aggressive emission reduction targets, and they want to become carbon neutral. And it's good for general health benefits as well. We've given there the example of Braintree Council and Essex County Council. They've created a climate commission, Essex Climate Commission, with 1.5 million budget to spend. And for example, they've created a first fully electric car charging forecourt near Braintree. And what this is, actually the whole thing is run by renewable energy to create the power for recharging the vehicles as well. And that's a project which is going to be rolled out as part of a £1 billion project to have 100 such facilities across the south of England. But all councils are looking at investing and improving their environments. I've mentioned Manchester already. They're investing in trees, low energy street lights, for example. And we have Nottingham Council that's investing 3.4 million in wireless charging points specifically for taxis. So it's an area of key focus if you have any products that or any services which can help improve the environment. Okay. And they're the main ones, they're the main categories that we've come up with, but there are other areas that are seeing significant opportunities in investment. For example, skills development. Some authorities are specializing in training and developing skills in their area for particular types of industry with the hope of attracting those industries to the area. So for example, in the West Midlands, they have construction training. We saw the example of Belfast earlier, where they've created this digital hub, and they've created the skills to supply the businesses that are being attracted to the area. Then you have technology hubs, so creating a centre of excellence for a particular technology or sector. Glasgow is a good example of that. They've put the emphasis on promoting science and technology businesses to attract those into their area. And of course, another key area that local authorities are looking at is how to create business growth within the businesses in their local area. So there are lots of funded programs to help local businesses grow and thereby create long-term jobs. Liverpool City Council is a good example of that. They've got a 20 million flexible growth fund, but that's part of a bigger project which is worth 75 million as well to stimulate business growth. So in summary, it is a time of change. There's been a lot of budget cuts, and that's led to innovation. Basically, it's led to new thinking and new opportunities for local authorities. So now, rather than being old and traditional, innovation is really welcome. In fact, it's actually demanded. Any kind of cost-saving solutions that you can offer, any kind of new technologies will be embraced. There's clearly an environmental emphasis and also an affordable housing and regeneration importance as well. Infrastructure spending is increasing, so if you're involved in anything in smart cities, infrastructure, digital technology, that's a great time to be looking at the UK. And there is additional funding which is coming in for post-COVID-19 economic stimulation. So again, there will be money to spend. So all in all, I think the local authority sector, I can say, is open for business. It's ready, it's waiting for new thinking, new companies to come in and provide ideas. And I think it's an ideal opportunity for Irish businesses to enter the UK market.
Super, Mike. Thanks a million. Really brilliant insights on the report. I do have to say, it's clear to say that local authorities in the UK may have to do more with less, but as you've proved from the projects that you've highlighted in the different investment areas, there are plenty of opportunities for clients across various sectors that are looking to provide innovation and value to UK local authorities. So thanks a million. We have got a couple of questions actually, so let's just have a look at these. So we've just been asked if we can get a copy of the slides. So absolutely, they'll be sent out following the webinar, along with the detail of the report, the detailed report, and also a lot of the specific local authorities that Mike mentioned today. There are a bit more further details into the plans that those local authorities have, and that's available as well along with the report, so we'll send that out. We've got a question saying, hi Mike, is there a UK Smart City Authority, or are there initiatives being taken in Sheffield, Newcastle, etc., being driven from a local level?
Yes, they're being driven from a local level. So there doesn't seem to be, as far as I can see, a coordinated approach. It's more of a local level, and which each authority thinks is going to benefit their area. There's nothing coming from centrally or regionalised even authorities that I've seen anyway.
On that as well, we are working on a report which will be launched probably later this year, and that's specifically around smart cities and UK local authorities and looking at 5G and connectivity. So that will, for those of you that are interested, those insights will delve a lot deeper into smart cities as a whole. So we'll keep you updated on that. We have another question around the topic of regeneration, Mike, and it said that you mentioned the towns being regenerated, such as Huddersfield and Dewsbury. Was there another one? I think the councils you mentioned there will be highlighted in the investment areas sheet, isn't that right?
Yes, they will. I mentioned also the investments that's already gone into places like Birmingham and Manchester, Salford Quays area in Manchester, where the BBC is now, but a lot of areas as well. As Tees Valley Combined Authority, they're looking for funding to convert the closed down steelworks into a business zone, for example. And Liverpool is another one which I didn't mention, but they've just bought 55,000 square meters of waterfront land, which they only paid a £1 for, apparently, and they're going to develop that into tourist and leisure attractions. But as you say in the report, there are a list of some other examples of regeneration projects.
Great, thanks, Mike. I mean, it's ever changing as well, so there's always more plans coming and more opportunities coming. So
yeah, I mean, we only in the report we could only put in a snapshot and and a selection to show the variety of projects that are available. There are obviously hundreds and hundreds more.
Great. And we have another question saying, great presentation, thank you. Can you advise, is a traditional approach of calls and emails best for approaching councils in the UK? Or how would you suggest to catch their attention and introduce yourselves and your product?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a whole nother presentation, I think, that one. That's obviously something that we do a lot for clients, is help them to get into local authorities. And yeah, an initial approach by email or call, finding out the right person in the right department. You can obviously look for tenders that have been announced, although I would put a note of caution there that often by the time a tender's been released, it's a little bit late to be getting involved. You really want to be there at an earlier stage and helping to mold the tender to your requirements, and even getting the specifications that's going to favor you, for example. But yes, I mean, the traditional sales methods, it's obviously a little bit different at the moment because we can't go and visit. There are certain conferences normally that you could go to that would help to get into the market. But yeah, having people, if you can find people with the contacts in the local authorities already, a distributor or say companies like ourselves that do that kind of work, or get a database of people and send out emails. You do find that the response rates are relatively low though, because they're busy people and they tend to to ignore emails. So but keep trying, I think, is the answer to that, and one leads to another, and asking for referrals. It is quite an incestuous kind of market industry as well, so you find people move around a lot and they talk to each other, so if you get in with one, then the message will spread.
Absolutely. I think if you can provide value and innovation for one council, they very much speak to each other. So one council can very often recommend value and really innovative products which they have managed to work with, and they do definitely. Word of mouth is key.
I think particularly at the moment, because they're so proud of the innovations that they're bringing in and the income that they want to show people what they've done. So it's there's going to be a lot of free publicity out there if you get in with the right people. Yeah,
and you also bring some insights into this whole area of kind of your business development sales strategy into our initial report. So I'm happy to share that as well. You kind of touch on that as well when you're in the initial one around the structure and overview of councils. So we can share that too. So I think that's all the questions that we have. Let me just check. Yeah, so that's everything. Just to say, the detailed report and the full details of councils and investment areas will be emailed out after the webinar. Just want to give a little bit of a plug to our biggest event of the year for our overseas offices, which is our International Markets Week. So if you have not registered, please do. The deadline is Friday, and if you'd like to speak to myself and Kevin Fennelly in the Manchester office around UK local authorities and this sector specifically, please do drop us an email and we can arrange to meet between the 5th and the 9th of October. And there's Mike's contact details if you'd like to understand more about the expertise and the consultancy work that Mike does. And my contact details are there as well. Follow us on Twitter and on LinkedIn. All of our events are shared on there, and also lots of our insights and reports. So please follow us on there to keep updated on the sector. And just to say thanks a million to everybody for joining us. We're really pleased that you can all sit through another webinar with all the Zoom calls and everything that's been going on. So we really do appreciate your time, and do get in touch. Thanks a million. Take care.